The anime starts with showing the city of the dead that is lived by undeads, far from human civilization. There lives a single human reincarnated into this world. His name is William, and usually goes by Will. He is raised by 3 undeads. They are August, the crotchety spectral sorcerer, Mary, the graceful, mummified priestess, and Blood, the hardy skeletal warrior. The 3 pour love into the boy and teach him all they know. They often give him bread that is made by Mary. The 3 undeads have many secrets. Will is curious that since he was born, he has never met any other humans. Will hides the truth from them that he is a human that has memory from the previous life. Will has promised to himself to live a better life in this world. Because initially Will was a reincarnated, Blood usually trains him to fight and hunt. Besides, Will also obtains knowledge of witchcraft from Gus. Meanwhile, Mary will be giving him the essential basic knowledge. Will is 8 years old now, and he is demanded to train in the real terrain. In his real training, he manages to defeat Gus, leaving both of them in a deep impression of the boy. One day, Will is curious about Mary, who always locks herself away into the temple hall a few times a day. Besides, he also sees Mary bringing a loaf of bread from the temple. Curious, Will sneaks into the hall, but he gets surprised as he enters the hall. He finds Mary is surrounded by blue flames. Will immediately goes to save her. As a result, his arms get burned. After the incident, Gus tells him that the bread he used to eat is a true nature of blessing from the fertility goddess named Mater. Before Mary turned into a mummy, he had formed contracts with goddess Mater to stay loyal to her. However, because she had also formed contracts with the god of undeath called Stagnate, that is the enemy of the fertility goddess, causing her body to burst in flame as a punishment for her betrayal. Even so, the goddess Mater still gives her the divine bread because of her prayer. Mary keeps praying to the fertility goddess even though it hurts her to raise him. Although the goddess doesn't say anything whenever she prays, the goddess always blesses Mary with the bread every day for Will. That is why Mary kept it a secret from Will. After learning the story, Will states he wants to pray for the goddess as well as a thank you. Several years later, Will has grown up. He has learned many things from them. Apart from that, his arms are getting better, thanks to Mary's prayer. Gus keeps teaching him the witchcraft lesson that gets more advanced, and he gives Will the lesson in a great number. Because Will is becoming stronger, Blood takes him to the city of Undead for the first time, but turns out Blood leaves him to fight alone. It is intended to Will learn to defeat the undead. Will walks through the cave and succeeds in defeating a crowd of quite strong undeads, until Will obtains a spear. However, Gus is in the cave as well to fight Will. Confused, Will reluctantly fights him back, but as he has Gus cornered, he doesn't have heart to kill Gus and states he rather dies than hurts him, because Gus is the precious figure for him. Apparently, Gus is only pretending to test Will. Besides, Gus also wants to find out Will's feelings towards them. However, Will senses there is something off with the city of dead and the 3 of them. Gus doesn't say anything about what happened in his training that day, and he doesn't tell Blood and Mary about it. Apart from that, Will obtains a dwarven magic spear called Pale Moon that is so practical to use. Will keeps training every day to become stronger. When he turns 15, he must carry out a ritual and age ceremony in which Will is going to choose the god he trusts to get the protection. Right before the ceremony, Gus believes that Blood will have a one-on-one duel with him, and he asks Will to lose without Blood noticing. Blood asks the reason, but Gus doesn't answer him. It makes Will mad at Gus and wonders what Gus is hiding from him. When Will is practicing, Blood asks him to drink alcohol with him. As a result, Will gets drunk and he peeps Mary in her room. Mary caught him and she slaps him hard. The following day, Will is turning 15, and he will have a one-on-one duel with Blood to carry out the age ceremony, and he will leave from the temple after that to venture out. Finally, the duel between Blood and Will begins. Thanks to all the lessons Blood taught Will, he manages to strike Blood until Blood is cornered. However, Blood parries his attack and wins the duel. Even so, Blood is amazed with his attack that hit his ribs. After that, Blood gives him a high-ranked demon blade, Overeater. Blood explains the blade is able to rend through a god's echo and absorbs the life energy of the rival or used to call by life steal. Blood and Mary entrust Will to be the heir of the blade because of his skill. After that, they tell him the things that makes him wonder all this time, or the secret they have long kept from Will. 200 years ago, the god of the demon lord, the highest king of the Eternals, tried to conquer the world. It led to commotion everywhere and the death of many people, including Blood, Mary, and Gus. The highest king of the Eternals, or High King, is able to create a demon with his own flesh. The High King can only be wounded with the blade, while other weapons didn't work for him. His favorite blade was an overeater that is given to Will. Since the High King occupied the city, many demons were created and attacked surrounding villages. Because of that, the three of them planned an attack on the High King. However, the Demon Lord has a very strong regeneration ability due to his overeater sword. Mary and the others then managed to steal the sword, but they couldn't beat High King. Even blood was powerless against him. Then finally, they decided to seal the High King in the city's underground. After that, the god of undeath, Stagnate, appeared before them. Stagnate offered them to become eternal undead. This was done so they could keep the High King sealed underground. Leaving with no choice, the three of them took the offer. Blood's flesh was all cut up, and he became a skeleton. Mary was burned by Mater's flame and became a mummy, while Gus, who didn't care for his body, became a ghost. 200 years later, they buried their allies and Gus laid out a magic barrier. Since then, they became the guardians of the city. They are bound to the city because of the contract with Stagnate, that they cannot check the outside world. Then one day, the demons brought Will to this world as a sacrifice to break the High King's seal. Fortunately, they managed to defeat the demons, and they decided to take and raise him and also teach him with many things. Although they had an argument on what they would do to him, Gus finally was amazed with his talent. If the demons managed to bring Will there, that means there is a settlement close to the city. That's why Will is in the city. Will has to embark himself on many adventures and visit various countries with the powers they gave. Will promises to return to the city someday and rebuild it. In the middle of the conversation, Stagnate appears there and intends to take Blood and Mary's soul away due to their bound to the contracts. Meanwhile, Will cannot do anything because his body cannot be moved. Soon after, Gus arrives and attacks Stagnate with his magic until he manages to defeat Stagnate. Unexpectedly, it turns out Stagnate is not over yet. He suddenly attacks Gus and knocks the three of them unconscious. Stagnate presence ends with a threat to Will that he will soon take their souls. After Stagnate leaves, Will takes Mary, Blood, and Gus to the temple. The next day, they are still alive as undead. Thus, Will promises that he will protect them so that Stagnate cannot take their souls away. After that, he makes a vow to serve one of the gods. Will decides he will choose the goddess of Lantern, Gracefiel, as her guardian. After that, Will, who is ready to fight against Stagnate, heads out. Stagnate appears and gives him a small attack in the form of thousands of undead, which are immediately slaughtered by Will. Seeing Will's overpowering talent makes Stagnate interested and gives him an offer to make Will the general of the undead. Stagnate invites Will to drink his blood, so Will forms a contract and becomes undead with him. Will slowly walks towards Stagnate, but not to accept his offer, instead to slash Stagnate brutally. But unfortunately, Stagnate cannot be defeated easily. Stagnate launches a counterattack that makes him unconscious. In his subconscious state, he meets the god of the Lantern. Gracefiel asks why he did not accept Stagnate's offer. Will answers that he wants to protect his two adoptive parents, Mary and Blood, and also Gus from Stagnate. He states he doesn't want to live eternally to become undead by joining Stagnate. Thus, as long as he can protect the three of them, he will fight Stagnate with all his might even though his life is at stake. Hearing that, Gracefiel gives her blessing to Will, until when he gains his sense back, his body is surrounded in blue flames, and his overeater sword is lighted up immediately. Will slain the undead with the divine torch. Seeing his power, Stagnate feels he is too powerful to defeat, and he goes to the temple, aiming the three legendary undead. Knowing this, Will rushes to catch up with him. Will thinks it is too late, but suddenly the goddess Mater descends down on Mary to give her blessing because of her loyalty of worshipping her. Doesn't want to waste the chance, Will, aided by Gus and Blood, immediately strikes Stagnate. Because of Will's power that is able to release the soul of undead, the good of undeath is countered and annihilated. After defeating Stagnate, the four of them plans on celebrating their victory by drinking liquor. Apparently, Mary and Blood will not live until the next day because their contacts with their master, Stagnate, has gone. Therefore, they will leave the world and will be reincarnated to the next life. As Will's adoptive parents, Mary and Blood, advise him to live a happy life. Will determines to venture out to gain information about the High King that is sealed. Finally, Mary and Blood return to the cycle of souls. Apparently, Gus is still alive. He is given blessing by Gracefiel to live 10 years ahead to guard the High King's seal before Will become strong by venturing out in the outside world. Before he leaves, Gus gives him all his coins as provision for his adventure. Moreover, Gus gives him a surname that attached his parents' name, Mirablood. Thus, his full name is William Gus Merryblood, and he heads to the outside world for an adventure. After that, Blood and Mary's past is shown, where they both succeeded in conquering the fortress of the High King, and before they head to slaughter the High King, they vowed to live their lives together until they have a child after returning. Unfortunately, their dream could not be achieved because they had to become undead. But in exchange, they managed to raise Will and become parents like what they wanted to be 200 years ago. The scene returns to Will, who is in the forest. Suddenly, a wild boar appears and attacks him. Will immediately stands up to fight the boar with his spear. Just then, an elf man shows up and claims the boar is his aim. Because Will has helped him in capturing the boar, he asks the elf for a share. Finally, they divide the boar and have lunch together. After finishing their lunch, the elf shows him the way to the nearest town. They then introduce themselves. The elf man mentions his name is Meneldor, and they depart ways there. That night, Gracefield gives danger warning to Will. At first, Will thinks Menel is in danger. But after a further investigation, it turns out Menel is attacking a village to loot the villagers' supplies. Then Will fights Menel with his power. Short story tells, Menel and his men are defeated. The head of the village thanks him for helping them and saving their village. The following day, Menel and his accomplices are then interrogated in front of the residents, which the majority are male because they come from wasted warriors. It turns out that the reason Menel looted the village is driven by his village being attacked by a group of demonic beasts until most of the residents was killed and the village was destroyed. They have to loot the village to get supplies for his remaining family. Hearing that, Will states that he will indemnify Menel's doing by giving them coins that Gus gave him. Moreover, Will is going to hire Menel to fight the demons that attack their village. Before leaving, Will heals some injured people with his magic, and he and Menel leave the village. Will and Meneldor begin their journey to annihilate the demons. They stop somewhere to rest as night falls. They talk about their strategy to deal with the demons that have captured the village. Meneldor then tells him that he will not interfere in the battle, and will only act as a guide. Will responds to him calmly and feels happy because he can go on an adventure with other people for the first time. The following day, Will and Menel arrive at the village that is quiet. Meneldor then moves to find information. Soon, Menel returns and tells him that the demonic beasts are doing a ritual in the temple under the command of lizard monster Vraskises and Manticore. Will is confident and prepares to fight the demons after knowing his rivals are mere beasts. Will's action makes Meneldor intrigued and immediately helps him exterminating the demons with an arrow attack that stops the demons' attempt to escape. After that, Will goes on to help the village by using Gracefield's blessing on the casualties so that they will be returned to the reincarnated cycle, and they won't turn into undead. Will also help a little boy who has turned into undead to go to afterlife by helping him recover from regret. Then Meneldor thanks him for helping the villagers. After sending the dead people to the afterlife with Gracefield's blessing, they visit the last place in the village, Granny Marple's house. There, they meet Granny Marple, who turns into a ghost. It makes Menel sad for losing the most precious person. Apart from that, Meneldor finally let go off his sadness thanks to Granny Marple's advice. She tells him to always be grateful towards the god's fate. Furthermore, she asks Will to help Meneldor. Soon, Granny Marple disappears and goes to the cycle of reincarnation. Before she leaves, she tells Will the demon's whereabouts. After that, Will brings the people back to the village so that they can rebuild their village. Because of his action, the villagers thank him and have him in a banquet. Will then goes to see Meneldor, who is sitting alone. Will asks Meneldor about Granny Marple. Meneldor then tells him his life, that he ran away from his land and was betrayed by his party, until finally Granny Marple found him lying on the ground. She took care of him and taught him many things. He keeps talking about how miserable life is. Then suddenly, Menel asks Will to give him the blessings of the goddess Gracefield. Later, Will and Meneldor seem to have a problem with the supply, that they must head towards White Sails to get what they need. Will, who is clueless about White Sails, then is informed about the history of the city. Meneldor explains in the remote southern continent, Southmark, that is rescued by the heroes from the abomination of the demons, but the fight affected the residents to move to grassland and leave only the hope of the fertile kingdom to expand the domination of mankind by building a port city called White Sails in the north of the Southmark. Apart from that, we'll also get information about Gracefield's followers who were scattered due to demon resistance. After that, Will, who has understood the detailed information from Meneldor, then asked him to do ruin driving to look for traveling capital to get to White Sails to stock up. On the way, Will and Meneldor save two people from the pursuit of a giant ape. The two then introduce themselves. The girl is Robina Goodfellow, while the man is Tonio the Hawker. The two of them then join Will and Meneldor because they are going to White Sails as well, and soon they continue their journey together. The journey seems to be an effective method for Will to spread the blessings of the goddess Gracefiel by helping Tonio and his business with his healing ability. He performs healing magic to people who need while spreading the name of goddess Gracefiel's in his action. 10 days have passed, and they have visited several villages while earning money. Then finally Will and the company arrive at Wheat Road, and they decide to stay the night there. Will then listens to Robina's song that talks about the tale of 3 legends, that none other than his adoptive parents. Will then finds out the heroic story from Mary, Blood, and Gus who helped the young man to save the elf girl from the wyvern. Moreover, Will is also informed that the elf girl is a noble of the Fertile Kingdom that until today is still waiting to meet the heroes that had saved her. Will is grateful that people still remember their kindness. The next day, Will, who is practicing, then talks to Tonio. Tonoi asks his ultimate goal on this journey. Will then states that he has carried out the task of the goddess Gracefiel, and he reveals another purpose of his journey because he wants to know the world and make some friends. Hearing that, Tonio tells him that he and the others will be helping him in carrying out the holy task to spread the goddess Gracefiel's blessings. Several moments later, they continue their journey to White Sails, and Will gets informed about the leader of the town named Prince Ethelbald Rexfertile, a smart noble from the Fertile Kingdom, and Prince Owen's brother. Apart from that, Will and the company finally arrive at the border of the White Sails city located on the edge of the Netuna Sea. Upon their arrival in the city, they see the city's complete facilities because of their advanced economy thanks to the economic policies carried out by Ethelbald. Furthermore, Will is also amazed by the culture in the city, and that he is interested in visiting the famous public bathhouse to clean himself. He finally gets to try the public bathhouse and try their cuisine with his company. After that, Will is suggested that he should visit a church in the city as greetings as a priest. Will agrees and he goes there. In the church, Will gets to meet the head priest named Bishop Bagley, who immediately confirms his authenticity as a follower of the goddess Gracefiel, and in short, Will also succeeds in convincing Bagley's doubts by proving his vow to the goddess of Lantern to quell darkness. Will and his friends then receive a privilege from the church, which allowed them to stay for a while, until their peaceful time is disturbed by the wyvern attacks around the city. Will certainly doesn't stay silent, and he immediately tries to stop the wyvern's atrocities with the help of Meneldor. They start attacking the wyvern with a combination of magic from the two of them that provokes the wyvern's movement to focus on attacking them. The wyvern is confronted, and it turns to attack Will and Meneldor with breath fire. Luckily, Will has predicted this outcome, and he sets up a defensive barrier to defend the church and its surroundings. Unfortunately, the wyvern gets to get through the shield with its poisonous miasma that counters the magic of light. However, Meneldor launches his magic towards the wyvern, and it falls free to the ground. Will takes the chance by attacking the wyvern with a quick movement by piercing the wyvern with his Spear of Destiny. Finally, the wyvern gets defeated using Will's movement that jumps into the wyvern as it is about to breath fire to the people. Everyone cheers for Will, and they call him Hero, the Wyvern Slayer. After that, Will helps the people to repair the town damaged by the wyvern attack. Later, Will receives an invitation from Ethelbald, who is interested with his achievement. Will then goes to see the ruler of the White Sails city with Meneldor. Upon their arrival, they get a warm welcome along with a thank you for their help in the wyvern crackdown. Moreover, Will is also offered a reward from Ethelbald, who wants to return the favor. Hearing that, Will relays his request to send the reinforcement to Beast Woods that is threatened by demons. Ethelbald refuses his request as he concerns more on the wyvern attack around White Sails, which is more dangerous for his people. Facing with difficulty, Will then requests that he fund a group of adventurers and mercenaries in order to hunt down the demons. Ethelbald is still considering Will's motives for saving Beast Woods, until Will finally expresses his sincerity to stop the evil from the devils, and he succeeds in gaining Ethelbald's trust. At the same time, Bishop Bagley and his daughter come and immediately stop their meeting because he doesn't want the priest to deal with politics which cause them blind to religion. Unfortunately, Bagley's arrival ends in vain as Ethelbald thinks of appointing Will as a paladin so as not to taint the church's authority over his status. Hearing this suggestion, Bagley doesn't immediately agree, and he asks for a moment to make sure of Will's sincerity in the temple. Long story short, Will then has a one-on-one conversation with Bagley, who confirms his sincerity in fulfilling the will of the goddess Gracefiel. Will is amazed because Bagley has knowledge about prayer and God's grace to his followers. Because of that, Will increasingly put his belief in the goddess Gracefiel and he immediately states his goal in front of Bagley by declaring his determination to accept Ethelbald's offer as a paladin. Hearing Will's sincerity, Bagley cannot help but accept his decision, and he promises to help him to gather troops so he can exterminate the demons in the Beast Woods. Soon, Will and Menelder immediately look for people who have been recommended by Bagley at a White Sails Adventurers Guild. In their action, Will and Menelder manage to make an agreement with a group of adventurers led by Raistov to help eradicate demons in the Beast Woods. And after that, Will, who then prepares himself to return to the Beast Woods, then received a request from Robina, who wants to interview Raistov. That's because Robina wants to make a heroic epic about Raistov, who is already known as a strong adventurer called by the Penetrator. In short, William then escorts Robina to interview Raistov, who has to engage in Robina's ridiculous requests. Robina forces Will to promise a duel with Raistov so that he can benefit from a quality rhyme. The next day, Will attends Ethelbald's coronation at the church, and he officially became a paladin whose job was to eradicate the evil of demons. Long story short, Wild and Aid volunteers then head out to Beast Woods to help the residents there who are having trouble. In their efforts to help, Will entrusts infrastructure and economic development to Tonio's bank, whose profit is guaranteed. Not only that, but he also gives the task of controlling the health and religious rituals of the villagers to Anna and several priests sent by Bagley. As for Raistov, he and his party are in charge of keeping the village safe from the monster attacks that are increasing nowadays because of the evil of the demons. In short, their efforts are ultimately paid off because he manages to prosper the residents living around the Beast Woods. But those peaceful days don't last long because Will receives bad news from Raistov, where he reports about the disappearance of the reconnaissance group while filling out the Devil's Search. Will immediately forms a search team to be able to confirm the whereabouts of the scouts who has been missing. The search eventually results in the discovery of the bodies of the reconnaissance party, who have apparently been slain by the demons. However, there is something odd about this discovery because one body has disappeared, and the trail leads into the valley, which is the headquarters of the demons. Seeing that, Will and the others rush to follow the trail to get more information about the condition of the scouts. Unfortunately, the search actually leads Will and the others into the trap of the demons, which quickly surround them from all directions. As a result, the battle is inevitable and makes Will and his group prepare to stop the demons who are trying to kill them. Afterwards, those who survive from the attacks of the demons are suddenly shocked by the appearance of giant demons, which immediately attack Menelder and make him injured and unconscious. This provokes the anger of Will, who is desperate because his friend is injured. Will turns into his berserk mode and brutally kills the demons. Raistov then approaches him and tells him to heal Menelder as he is dying. William performs healing magic towards Menelder, and he falls next to his friend from exhaustion. Will wakes up in Raistov's care. Raistov informs him that the demon army has retreated and Menelder is slowly getting better. Raistov tells Will to rest for a while until he is fully recovered. Will thinks about his failed strategy against the Chimera. Will assumes his failure was because he didn't predict his friend's strength. Will then goes to meet Menelder to heal his wound. Will blames himself that making Menelder injured because he was pretending to be weak in front of Menelder. Thus, Will determines to fight the demons by himself that Menelder and his friends will not get hurt from the battle. After that, Will leads Menelder and his friends to fight Chimera. Unfortunately, his departure is noticed by Menelder, who stops him to fight the demons alone. They are engaged in arguments, and they start to fight because of their different idea of the fighting the demons. Will easily outmatches Menelder because his fight ability is much better than Menelder. But he is caught off guard by Menelder's trap. Menelder takes the chance to reveal his concern towards Will, who is blaming himself over what happened, because he considers Will as a friend he needs to help when he has a problem. It makes Will realize his reckless and foolishness. Will apologizes to Menelder because he once again did a reckless thing in an effort to overcome the problem. Will and Menelder then get to meet Raistov and the others to make a strategy to defeat the demons. Will and the others start heading out to attack the demon. This time, Will and his friends manage to surpass the demons because of their organized plan. They succeed in breaking through the barricades and hundreds of Mega Waves monsters. On the other hand, Ethelbald and Bagley are worried about Will and his demon extermination operation. They hope that Will and the others gain victory in the battle. Returning back in the battle, Will and Menelder arrive at the ruins and face Chimera. Chimera reveals their true goal, that they are actually after the High King's seal to break by keep doing evil in the Southmark continent. Will against their evil deeds, making them angry, and they immediately attack him. Will launches an attack towards Chimera with a support combination from Meneldor. Thanks to Meneldor's help, Will manages to launch a fatal attack and aims one of its heads. Unfortunately, it is not strong enough to stop Chimera, which regenerates itself quickly. Will doesn't stay still and takes the chance to destroy it with his spear. Finally, the attack manages to annihilate the demon Chimera, and it puts the end of the battle against the demon army. Later, Will and Meneldor, who are searching in the enemy's base, find Restov, who has defeated the Wyverns. It also signifies victory for Will's party, which succeeds in annihilating the demons. After the battle against the demons ends, Will and his friends are seen spending time together listening to Robina's rhyme. After that, Will also gets information from Meneldor about the residents who will build a temple for Goddess Gracefiel. Will feels happy because his steps to get people to know the Goddess Gracefiel are wide open. However, Will is then worried because Meneldor appointed him to become the ruler of the Beast Woods region for his achievements so far. In the end, his worries are overcome because he realizes the decree of destiny from the Goddess Gracefiel and also believes in help from his friends. Thank you viewers who have always faithfully watched the videos on this channel from start to finish. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like this video if you enjoy our content. See you in the next video.